Yes, recording is we may begin.
Okay, thank you, Sonia. So good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to this webinar on Act of Kindness, which is a sort of an introduction to UNESCO's initiative of spreading the kindness movement. And spearheading this program in India are the Nagrik Foundation, the SDGchoupal, and the Rotary. And from Punjab University, the initiative has been undertaken by the Punjab University Alumni Association, who under the leadership of Professor Deepti Gupta. Well, we all know about the story of the philosopher Diogenes, the critic who, carrying a lantern in daylight, walked up and down the streets of Athens and claimed to be looking for an honest man. Scholars say that Diogenes did walk up the streets of Athens in broad sunlight with a lantern, but he wasn't looking for an honest man, but he was looking for humanity. Humanity is something which we must always keep searching for, like Diogenes. And this initiative of UNESCO, along with the Indian counterparts of SDGchoupal, Nagrik Foundation, and Rotary, is to share the stories of kindness, and it is a step in that direction. And at a time when the only news is about destruction from a pandemic, and at a time when we press the like button on a Facebook post which shares the news of death of someone, it is important even more to share such stories. To share such stories, I was asked by Shwetanshu Goel, and when he spoke about the idea, I completely fell for it, because when he called me and asked and discussed to take this forward, I also thought that the time had really come for the youth to spread this kind of humanity. I would request Professor Deepti Gupta, one of the brightest stars of Punjab University, to do the honors. So, ladies and gentlemen, Professor Deepti Gupta.
Thank you, Shruti, for the kind words, which is why I always jump at opportunities to work with you, because you yourself are a very kind, especially in your words. Now, good afternoon, everyone. It's a pleasure to welcome you here. Although I do wish we could have welcomed you physically at the Panjab University, shown you around and sat in a nice auditorium and talked about these stories. But change management is part of the game of life, and we all need to learn to manage the changes that time thrusts. It's not a very happy time, the history of mankind. And just yesterday, I was speaking with one of my students who was very worried about the pause button being pressed career. So I was telling him, hey, relax. You are not the only one who is suffering this fate these days of living in a paused universe with a paused career. You belong to a whole generation. So in a way, you are part of history now. Because when we look at this period, we will be thinking of the many ways in which life changed. Because obviously, after this period, we would all be living in a different universe, a universe that would not be as free and as open as it used to be earlier. Because obviously, this pandemic is going to leave its indelible mark in history. And also, I think, in some way, on all our minds. Hence, the need to reinforce the basic human values. This is the time when you begin to entertain self-doubts, and you also begin to doubt the world around you. So this is when you need to talk about the good things of life, the good things of humanity. I was just reading Rutgers, A Hopeful History of Humankind, and then I realized that it's all a matter of interpretation. Matters how you look at things, how you perceive things. Where personally I am concerned, I feel that my perspective of the world was shaped by the people around me because I was surrounded by a generation which was totally kind. For instance, when I would look at my father started life in India. He was a refugee from Pakistan. His family had fled Pakistan, leaving everything behind. So he started life from scratch when he came. And he had witnessed such a lot of ugliness, cruelty, savagery while moving from Pakistan to India. When they set off from Pakistan, there were 8 brothers and sisters, but just 3 reached India. That was the level of sorrow and misery he had seen on his way. So one thing I always remember about his dealings with people, always a very soft and kind person. Because he rose to become the president of the regional college teachers. So even today, when I meet people who had interacted with him during his PhD, they say that here is a person who forgot the basic human value. And I actually witnessed all that while I was growing up. If he ever said a word in anger, or even, those days, it was a pretty common practice to hit a child if a child was going wrong. But I barely remember whether he ever hit us. And the 1 or 2 times that he scolded us, he would sit and repent. He would say, I use these words in anger against my children. So maybe somewhere it's my fault my child behaved like this. So witnessing such people, and then, Professor Balram Gupta, that's Dr. Shruti Bedi's father, he was mentor to most of us public speakers. So those were the days when you went for a debate or a declamation contest, and Professor Balram Gupta, who at that point of time was among the senior most professors, would be sitting in the audience, and he would just walk up to you at tea time, because those were the good old days when every contest was followed by a nice high tea. So while you were enjoying your little snack, and because you felt they were the fruits of your labor, he would just come up to you, put a kind hand on your shoulder, and say, maybe you could have said this in this fashion. And then henceforth, if you happen to talk to him and you said, Sir, I have a contest coming up, so he would say, why don't you drop in? I'll give you a practice session. So those were those good old days, And I remember my parents, both of them are teachers. The house was always full of students who needed mentorship, needed to talk about something, or even children who were in the hostel and wanted to have a home cooked meal. So those of us who have grown up with this kind of kindness in the air, witnessed these kind acts, and who have been lucky enough to be at the receiving end of this kindness, it's very difficult for us to leave these acts behind. And which is why, even today, when we are adults, and sometimes one has to be unkind to be kind, even then you start questioning yourself. Hey, could I have done this better? Could I have managed without hurting so and so person? Maybe talk about emotional quotient and emotional intelligence. Whereas I feel that there are people in the world who may not know what emotional quotient or emotional intelligence is. Yet they are the most balanced people. The way they understand their emotions, the way they manage their emotions. So I would just like to sign off with this idea that being kind doesn't mean being stupid. You know, kind, it simply means that you have certain basic values of humanity that you hold dear, that you are non-violent in your speech and act, but can defend yourself. And you can defend yourself with time. There's no doubt in my mind at all. So I congratulate the organizers. I congratulate SDGchoupal and of course partners for coming up with this wonderful event. And we are all going to try that a good number of students participate, because after all, we are looking at the coming generations to reinforce these values. So where we have people like Professor Kant among us, who I feel is the epitome of kindness, we also have a lot of youngsters who need to be shown the path. So hence I feel that this event would be extremely effective in that direction. I'd like to thank Dr. Shruti Bedi for her efforts for bringing this event to PUAA and giving it the opportunity to be a part of this wonderful event. Thank you very much, everyone. Dr. Bedi, yeah.
Thank you so much, Professor Deepti Gupta. Those are indeed your vibe, because what you truly spoke about is Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy of non-violence and encouraging attitude to spread humanity and kindness amongst the people. Well, to speak more about this exact issue, we have with us Mr. Deepak Dwivedi, who is the chief editor of Dainik Bhaskar. He's also the director of Rotary Foundation and the chairman of SDGchoupal in India. I would now call upon you, sir, to introduce this initiative to the audience. Mr. Deepak Dwivedi.
Good afternoon, and good afternoon, my esteemed guests.
Deepti, you like to have the video before you speak?
Pardon me?
You want me to play the video on the Choupal before you speak?
Yes.
Thank you.
Or should I play it?
Deep sir, it's not playing. Do you want somebody else to do it? I don't think he's managed to share the screen.
This is the one.
Sonia can play it.
SDGchoupal, that one.
Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, Sonia, go ahead and play it.
Okay.
I think if it's taking time, we can. While I would request Mr. Dwivedi to go ahead and share his thoughts. So you have to unmute. Okay, she's sharing the content, I think.
Hello.
But she is slightly slow today. You'll have to bear with us. Just give it a moment.
न्यायपूर्ण, समृद्ध और सुरक्षित विश्व की रचना करेंगे। इस लक्ष्य को पूरा करने के लिए नीति आयोग, DAIC, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ सोशल जस्टिस, गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया, नागरिक फाउंडेशन, दैनिक भास्कर, MSME, WHO, UN हैबिटेट, कॉमनवेल्थ सेक्रेटेरिएट, ONGC, टेरी और ऐसे कई संस्थानों ने संपूर्ण रूप से मिलकर SDG को देश में सफल बनाकर दुनिया में भारत को पहला स्थान दिलाने का संयुक्त संकल्प लिया है। और इसी दिशा में एक नई पहल भी की गई है जिसका नाम है SDG चौपाल। SDG चौपाल वो मजबूत कड़ी है जिसके द्वारा जन जन को SDG लक्ष्यों के बारे में न केवल अवगत कराया जाएगा बल्कि यह इन लक्ष्यों को 2030 तक प्राप्त करने में भी सहायक रहेगा। दैनिक भास्कर, उत्तर प्रदेश और नागरिक फाउंडेशन के प्रयासों से SDG चौपाल पिछले 1 साल से SDG के लक्ष्य की प्राप्ति के लिए निरंतर कार्य करते हुए जन समुदायों का सशक्तिकरण कर रहे हैं। दैनिक भास्कर उत्तर प्रदेश पूर्ण रूप से SDGs को समर्पित और यह हर रोज सभी 17 SDGs अपने संस्करण के पहले पन्ने में छापते हैं। और इसी प्रतिबद्धता का परिणाम है कि आज SDG चौपाल ग्रामीण भारत से जुड़कर एक जन आंदोलन बन रहा है। SDG चौपाल प्रेरित है माननीय प्रधानमंत्री श्री नरेंद्र मोदी जी, फादर ऑफ न्यू नेशन के कुशल और गतिशील नेतृत्व से, जिन्होंने संकल्प से सिद्धि, सबका साथ सबका विकास, जन कल्याण से जग कल्याण और प्लास्टिक मुक्त भारत जैसे कई अभियानों से SDG को साकार करने का और एक नवीन और विकसित भारत की रचना करने का संकल्प लिया है। भारत सरकार ने भी SDG के लक्ष्यों की प्राप्ति के लिए कई योजनाओं की शुरुआत की है, जिनमें गरीबी हटाने के लिए मनरेगा, भुखमरी समाप्त करने के लिए राष्ट्रीय कृषि विकास योजना, स्वास्थ्य को बढ़ावा देने के लिए आयुष्मान भारत योजना शुरू की गई है, जो कि दुनिया की सबसे बड़ी स्वास्थ्य चिकित्सा योजना है। शिक्षा के क्षेत्र में सरकार द्वारा सर्व शिक्षा अभियान जैसी योजनाएं शामिल की गई हैं। लेकिन ये सब योजनाएं तभी सफल और साकार हो सकती हैं जब ये घर घर और जन जन तक पहुंचे, और इसे सार्थक करने के लिए बनाई गई है SDG चौपाल। SDG चौपाल अपने कई प्रकार के प्रभावी कार्यक्रमों के माध्यम से आम नागरिकों से जमीनी स्तर पर जुड़ेगा, उन्हें SDG लक्ष्य और सरकार की योजनाओं के बारे में जागरूक करके उनकी सहभागिता सुनिश्चित करेगा। सरकार द्वारा और भी कई क्षेत्रों में योजनाएं शुरू की गई हैं, जैसे कि लैंगिक समानता प्राप्त करने के लिए बेटी पढ़ाओ बेटी बचाओ, जल और स्वच्छता उपलब्ध कराने हेतु स्वच्छ भारत अभियान, आधुनिक और किफायती ऊर्जा के लिए राष्ट्रीय सौर मिशन और प्रधानमंत्री उज्ज्वला योजना, जिसके अंतर्गत ग्रामीण क्षेत्रों में LPG सिलेंडर मुहैया करवाए गए। इसके अलावा आर्थिक विकास के लिए नेशनल स्किल डेवलपमेंट मिशन जैसी स्कीम सरकार द्वारा चलाई जा रही है। SDG चौपाल एक सूत्रधार के रूप में कार्य करेगा, जो सभी हितकारियों को एक सूत्र में पिरोकर एक साथ चलने और एक साथ सफलता प्राप्त करने की एक सफल मिसाल दुनिया के सामने पेश करेगा। SDG चौपाल एक ऐसी पहल है जो कि एक बेहतर विश्व की परिकल्पना के इरादे से नीति आयोग, DAIC, मिनिस्ट्री ऑफ सोशल जस्टिस, WHO, MSME, टेरी, RIS, ONGC, कॉमनवेल्थ सेक्रेटेरिएट और UN हैबिटेट के सहयोग से की गई है। SDG चौपाल से अब हर घर, हर गांव, हर नगर तक पहुंचेगी विकास की लहर। SDG चौपाल ग्रामीण भारत का सशक्तिकरण, SDG का समर्थीकरण। SDG चौपाल का मिशन है SDG को साकार करना और 100% SDG साक्षरता लाना। आइए हम सब मिलकर इस जन आंदोलन में बढ़ चढ़कर हिस्सा लें और एक नए विश्व के निर्माण में भागीदार बने।
Mr. Dwivedi?
Can continue,
Yes.
please.
इस वीडियो को सारा कुछ देखने के बाद काफी कुछ स्पष्ट हो जाता है कि हम लोग किस दिशा में आगे बढ़ रहे हैं। आज खास तौर से हम लिए बात करने के लिए इकट्ठे हुए हैं और सभी स्टीम गेस्ट को एबल कैन फ्रॉम यूनेस्को, विवेक अत्रे इज अ फॉर्मर IAS ऑफिसर फ्रॉम पंजाब कैडर, प्रोफेसर दीप्ति गुप्ता and Dr. Shruti and all the esteemed audience and the participants who are participating in this session. हम देश के अंदर काइंडनेस को घर घर पहुंचाने के लिए देश की भाषा में बात करने के लिए खड़े हुए हैं और इसमें पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी समेत यूनेस्को और डिफरेंट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस का सबका सहयोग है। ये एक बहुत बड़ा देश के लिए कंट्रीब्यूशन है, योगदान है। हम इसके लिए सभी लोगों को धन्यवाद ज्ञापित करते हैं और उनके अनुग्रहित हैं। प्रश्न ये है कि दुनिया विकास की ओर जाना चाहती है, देश विकास की ओर जाना चाहते हैं। ईच एंड एवरी फैमिली एंड ईच एंड एवरी पर्सन इज लुकिंग फॉरवर्ड द डेवलपमेंट। सारे लोग विकास के लिए देखना चाहते हैं, विकास की ओर जाना चाहते हैं। लेकिन विकास की जो मेन धुरी है, जो मेन उसका न्यूक्लियस, मेन फाउंडेशन है, वो यूनेस्को ने पहचाना कि काइंडनेस इज द मेन की एंड न्यूक्लियस एंड द फाउंडेशन ऑफ द entire success, the holistic success of not only the person, for country and the world and the organizations, industry, educational, scientific, whatever the sector we can take. किसी भी क्षेत्र में हमको उन्नति करने के लिए सबसे पहला जो सूत्र है, हमारे अंदर उदारता होनी चाहिए, काइंडनेस। काइंडनेस एक ऐसी चीज है कि जिससे देश दुनिया की तरक्की का सबसे बेसिक फंडामेंटल फाउंडेशन है। हमारे धर्म ग्रंथों में कहा गया है, उदार चरिता नाम वसुधैव कुटुंबकम। क्यों आज हम सारी दुनिया में बैठ के यूनेस्को हमसे बात कर रहा है, हम लोग सारे दुनिया के लोगों से बात कर रहे हैं? क्योंकि हम लोग उदार चरिता नाम, हम लोग अगर काइंड हार्ट की, उसकी काइंड हार्टेड पर्सन की ट्रेट है उसका, कि वो पूरे विश्व को, पूरी धरती को अपना घर समझता है। और अगर इसी मूल भावना के साथ में हम सारे अपने सहयोगियों को साथ लेते हुए और काइंडनेस की बात अगर हम हर पंचायत के माध्यम से देश के 6.5 लाख से ज्यादा गांव तक अगर मैंने पहुंचा दिया इन प्रैक्टिकल टर्म्स, तो देश और दुनिया में हिंदुस्तान एक लीडर बनेगा, एक होलिस्टिक डेवलपमेंट के लिए, एक सर्वांगीण विकास के लिए, जिसमें हमारी प्रति कैपिटा इनकम मजदूर की भी बढ़ेगी, हमारी इंडस्ट्री की भी बढ़ेगी, हमारे किसान की भी बढ़ेगी और हमारे देश का GDP बढ़ेगा। दुनिया की ग्रोथ में हमारी गणना होगी, हम लोग शामिल होने जाएंगे अगर हमने काइंडनेस को घर घर पहुंचा दिया। अब प्रश्न इस बात का उठता है कि काइंडनेस की बात कितनी थ्योरेटिकल है और कितनी प्रैक्टिकल है। हम लोग जब प्रोफेसर से पढ़ते थे यूनिवर्सिटी में, तो हमेशा एक चीज कहते थे, हाउ यू कैन translate your degree and your knowledge into the real life, कि आप अपने रियलिटी में, व्यवहारिकता में अपने ज्ञान को कैसे ट्रांसलेट कर सकते हैं, कैसे इंप्लीमेंट कर सकते हैं। वही प्रश्न आज सबसे इंपॉर्टेंट प्रश्न खड़ा हुआ है कि यूनेस्को का एक हम मैंडेट लेके चल रहे हैं जो दुनिया को बदल सकता है। हिंदुस्तान से उसकी शुरुआत हो रही है, लेकिन हम 6.5 lakhs villages in the entire country, 629 districts in, हम how we can spread, how we can give the message, touch all each and every villages in the country। हम 6.5 लाख गांव को कैसे हम उन तक अपनी बात को काइंडनेस की पहुंचाएंगे, ये सबसे महत्वपूर्ण प्रश्न है। इसमें हमको सारे लोगों के सुझाव, सारे लोगों से हमको टाई अप करना है कि हम शहर से होते हुए जिला स्तर से लेके, तहसील स्तर से लेके, ब्लॉक स्तर से लेके गांव के स्तर तक, जब तक हम काइंडनेस की बात को नहीं पहुंचाएंगे, इसको हम किताबों से ट्रांसलेट करके
I think we lost Sir. Let's wait if you can join back.
Some network issue must have happened then. He's logged in. If you have anybody who can call and check, please.
Mr. Sandeep, sir? University Institute of Legal Studies here. I can see, and it's good to see all of you. We have him back.
Traveling, it seems. The car, so that is.
Well, Mr.
Hello.
Deepak Dwivedi was okay. He's back. Go ahead, sir.
अच्छा, ओके। तो आखिरी में हमारा आप इस सेशन में जितने स्टीम गेस्ट हमारे आमंत्रित अतिथि हैं, हमारे पार्टिसिपेंट्स हैं और जो हमारे मैसेंजर कैरियर्स हैं, जो लोग इसको सुन रहे हैं, उन सबसे मेरी एक ही आग्रह और विनती है कि इस विषय पर जरूर विचार रखें कि हम इस मैसेज को गांव-गांव तक कैसे पहुंचाएंगे और अपना नाम हम एक अनपैरेलल, एक एग्जेम्पलरी मॉडल दुनिया के सामने रखेंगे कि काइंडनेस का ये जो एक इनिशिएटिव हुआ है, इसको हम दुनिया में इस तरीके से पहुंचा सकते हैं और हिंदुस्तान के 629 डिस्ट्रिक्ट में हम लोगों ने इसको पहुंचाने का संकल्प लिया है। आप सभी के सहयोग से, आप सभी के जुड़ाव से, आप सभी के मार्गदर्शन से हम इसको पहुंचाने में कामयाब होंगे और हर उस व्यक्ति को इसका पार्टनर बनाना चाहेंगे जो अगर मुझको एक व्यक्ति भी दे सकता है, अगर एक से एक व्यक्ति भी जोड़ सकता है, तो हम उस संस्था को, उस व्यक्ति को, उस ऑर्गेनाइजेशन को इसमें पार्टनर जरूर बनाना चाहेंगे कि काइंडनेस की कतार को एक अंतहीन कतार बनाए और हमारे देश का, दुनिया का एक नया रूप नेक्स्ट जनरेशन के सामने आगे लाए। धन्यवाद। थैंक यू वेरी मच।
Thank you so much, Mr. Deepak Dwivedi. Is a Sanskrit phrase which is found in our Maha Upanishad. It's a Sanskrit phrase which means that the world is one family, and that really truly epitomizes what this initiative is about, the Kindness Initiative. Thank you so much, sir, for sharing, and I hope that all the students and the youth who are with us will spread your message as far and wide as possible. Well, to talk more about the project at length, the Senior Officer, Youth Program, UNESCO, Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development. So without taking up more time, I would like to ask Mr. Abel Kane to take over the stage.
Thank you very much, Shruti, and thank you, Professor Dipti, for those wonderful words earlier. I'm going to share my screen. Shruti, I was, when you had introduced the conference, you mentioned Diogenes. Scratch my head going, who was Diogenes again? So quickly Wikipedia it and you get the picture about him
Google to the savior.
Walking around with a lamp, looking for an honest person. So in my little way today, I'm walking around in daytime with my mobile phone light on, looking for a kind person from Panjab University. I had to Wikipedia the university earlier to figure out that there are 18,000 students at the university. And so if I could put 1,800 stories after today's presentation, I would count this as a very good 10% success rate. Well, Professor Dipti, when you're talking to your student about the ravages of COVID, my story is a bit of the opposite. I have two teenage boys, and they too were wondering what's why is this COVID happening during our time? You know, it's unfair. All of these things are being cancelled. Both my boys are fans of NBA basketball in America, and that's all, all been heavily impacted. And I said, you boys should count yourselves as quite lucky to suffer this pandemic. And they're going, are you crazy? Lucky? I said, yep. Because unfortunately, I think pandemics might not be the 100 once every long time before the next one comes. And because we ought to always be learning creatures, we should be better at the next pandemic. And that's what this is. Look at this as a fantastic training opportunity. Never waste even a terrible crisis. So I'm going to try to share my screen now. I have a very short video that I would like to play. I hope it's... Shruti, can you tell me what you're seeing on screen? Because my screen has all gone crazy now.
Yes, so we can see a video.
Okay.
It's yet to start. Yeah. Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
When you choose to do something which benefits everyone around you, it begins to show. And the kindness spreads. It transcends the realm of the tangible and inspires humanity. Because we are all connected in more ways than we can imagine. Your one act of kindness begins a series of meaningful transformations. Your one act of kindness has the power to change the world. What we usually see are the great actions. But what we fail to recognize is that it all begins with you. The UNESCO MGIEP is helping us connect the dots with the Kindness Matters campaign. Let's ensure that no act of kindness goes unnoticed. Submit your story and let the world know how you have changed the world in your own special way. Because in this world, we may not live forever, but our acts of kindness will be the change for the SDGs.
Okay, so that's the video. And now I hope you should be seeing. Do you see a PowerPoint presentation now?
Yes, sir. Please go ahead.
Superb. So thank you very much, Professor Deepti. Thank you very much to the organizers at Panjab University. Thank you again to my good friend Sandeep from SDGchoupal and the chairperson Deepak for organizing this presentation. This is the second in a series of presentations that Sandeep is setting up for us with universities across India and across the world to promote and, more importantly, to sign up an army that will wage peace through acts of kindness for achieving the Sustainable Development Goals. I'm going to talk very briefly about our global advocacy campaign, Kindness Matters. It started in 2017, where on the 12th of August, which is the United Nations International Day of Youth, we partnered with Instagram in India to try to convince thousands of youth from across 17 cities in India to gather and to try to achieve one of the 17 SDGs through acts of kindness. And this was quite a fun event. It started in 2017 like a once-off event. And then it gathered momentum such that in 2018, we actually said, let's make this a campaign. Let's make this a campaign that every day of the year, we would not only encourage random or instinctive acts of kindness. Those are fantastic. If an accident happens in front of you and you rush to the person and you apply an act of kindness to take them to the hospital, that's great. But can we make it a lot more serious? Can we actually integrate kindness into curricula at all levels? We have colleagues that look after the K-12, and I look after the youth market, where we, and I'll show you later in this presentation, how we institutionalize kindness in formal training programs. So from a launch in 2018, we started gathering stories as evidence that kindness achieves the SDGs. Right now, I have about 7,500 stories from around the world, many of them from India, of course, that are humble stories all the way up to amazing stories that win awards at the United Nations. Stories of individuals or groups of individuals or youth NGOs that have decided that their basis for intervening, that their actions are going to be based on empathy, compassion, and kindness. Sure, it's one thing that you can get some money and you can train some rural women on some livelihood skills, and this will achieve some of the SDGs for gender equality or for poverty reduction. But if you can go one step further and base your action on either empathy, which is knowing the other, as well as compassion, which is actually acting on this empathy, then this would be a lot higher. You would find that the reward is not for you, the reward is for the other. That's our fundamental distinction of the acts of kindness. Whenever people ask me, what's an act of kindness? Just think of it based on empathy, compassion, and you will know what is kindness. So the first part of our campaign is to collect stories. And if by the end of today, I will have convinced the 60, 70 people on this webinar, as well as convinced the Panjab University Alumni Association to reach out to the thousands of existing students and the hundreds of thousands of past students to enter a kindness story, we will highlight this on a map that we call the Global Kindness Map. And of course, what we want to show, it's like a friendly competition between universities or a friendly competition between countries. Who is the most kindest country of all? Or who is the most kindest university of all? The more pins that you have on your location, the better. Then last year, when we had gathered a tremendous number of these stories, we decided to organize the first World Youth Conference on Kindness for the SDGs. That was held here in New Delhi, where I'm currently based. It was an amazing conference. We put up a draft declaration. We received several thousand comments on this draft declaration. In August last year, in partnership with so many good people. For example, OP Jindal University offered to host all of our workshops for free. We had the President of India opening the conference, the Minister of HRD at that time. We had 60 to 80 amazing youth from all over the world and 1,000 youth from all over India who were selected based on their stories of kindness. The invitees to this conference had to submit a story of kindness that could either make an IPL stadium of fans either cry or cry tears of joy and cheer for you. That was our simple criteria for the invitation to come to this conference. An act of kindness that was amazing. And then we had Ricky Kedge, a Grammy Award winner from India, and he composed the kindness anthem for us that was launched. If I have time at the end of the Q&A, we can play that anthem, which we think is pretty cool. So that was last year. We organized that conference. Now, what are we doing now? Okay, so this year, in partnership with this Global Youth Alliance for Kindness, this was born at last year's conference, and any one of the Panjab University youth can join this. We're again gathering stories, and next month, we're going to organize the second World Youth Conference on Kindness. Now, this will be a two-part event. Part 1 on Saturday, the 24th of October, is celebrating the United Nations Day, particularly the 75th anniversary of the United Nations worldwide. Now, of course, I'm from UNESCO, a part of the United Nations, so I'm not allowed to say bad things about the United Nations, but we are inviting the youth to come and tell us, in the last 75 years, has the UN been good for you, useless for you, or middle of the road for you? That's part 1 of what we want the youth to tell us on Saturday. Part 2 of what we want the youth to tell us on Saturday is, what do I see as the next 75 years of the United Nations? Should it always be held captive by the permanent 5 members, where all the other nations are just window dressing and spectators to the major decisions that are happening? All of this will be happening on Saturday. On Sunday is where I deserve the salary that I get paid. On Sunday, we are going to try to issue the next Global Youth Declaration on Kindness. And it's going to have most of what we had last year. Youth should be kind. Youth should go and train themselves on kindness. Youth should go and do acts of kindness. But this time, the declaration that's going to be issued next month is going to call on governments to create a new United Nations International Day of Kindness. So what's my call to action to all of the youth today in this very short and quick presentation, which I'm trying to go through very quickly to maximize time for the Q&A. I would like the youth of Panjab University to enter a story of kindness that either they have undertaken or that they have witnessed undertaken. I love the story of Professor Dipti, who told about her family's coming across from Pakistan during partition. Many stories of kindness were done there, stories by Muslims to the Sikhs, by the Sikhs to the Hindus. Many stories of kindness were from that time. What about the modern stories, particularly by youth, all right? Particularly during this time of COVID, not many people, lakhs and crores of students across India are not getting access to decent education. There is this thing called online learning, just like these WebEx webinars and all that, but is that a quality education? The question is still not answered, but there are people who are trying to bridge this gap. If you have this story, please enter it into our kindness form. If you have an amazing story, let Shruti know, to let Sandeep know, to let me know, and we might bring you to this conference and we will highlight that story at the conference. And then thirdly, do you wish to be involved? Do you wish to be associated with the creation of a new International Day of Kindness? If this kind of thing appeals to you, especially maybe Shruti's legal studies students, all right? It's not often that you create a new international day for the United Nations. And if you're involved, you can put on that LinkedIn profile and CV, I was involved, I created a new United Nations International Day. So many points of entry, many calls to action for the youth. Now here's the second part of my presentation. The kindness campaign is top down. It's an advocacy campaign. Our new course that we have just released yesterday is called Compassionate Integrity Training. It is an online course. It is self-directed or self-paced. You can do it whenever you like, whenever you are free. It is free of cost, okay, for a little while. We're going to make it free of cost. So my offer that I said to Sandeep to tell to all the university partners, for the next couple of weeks, at every university that I will present to, I will make it free of cost. I haven't quite figured out how to charge for this thing, but we're gonna just make it free of cost anyway. This course will give to the students 10 solid skills on empathy, mindfulness, compassion, and systems integration, how to apply these skills in the real life, okay? Like I said before, it's online. Even though it's self-directed, you don't have to feel alone as the student in this course. We have an online community of learners. Already hundreds of learners from all over the world have joined, and they are blasting each other with so many questions self-answering the questions there for the course. Here is the link on this PowerPoint, and of course I'll share this PowerPoint with Shruti. You can share it with everybody who is attending this webinar, and you can enroll. Like I said before, it's an online course. It's self-directed learning. It's on the MGIP Framerspace platform, which is an open source platform. It teaches empathy, mindfulness, and compassion. It's perfect for these times. As I said before, COVID actually was really quite beneficial for me. This is almost a terrible thing to say, because the work that I was doing is just so necessary during the time of COVID. What is the work that I'm doing? I'm trying to reduce mental stress, anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts. I'm trying to increase emotional resilience, emotional intelligence, mental strength. I'm trying to increase all of this. I'm trying to make people have self-compassion, compassion for others, and compassion for the environment. I mean, even before COVID, there was climate change, which was destroying the earth. All of these skills are so critically important in a course like ours, Compassionate Integrity Training, or CIT. If you finish the 10 skills, you will get a certificate from UNESCO and from Life University in the United States, which are our partners. So now I'm just going to play the little video about the course. I have to stop sharing the PowerPoint and share. Where is this course? Okay. So now I think
we all feel the weight of these extraordinary times. So how do we create a better future, a better world? Compassion. Compassion towards yourself. Compassion towards others. Compassion that helps to change society. Join Compassionate Integrity Training by Life University's Center for Compassion, Integrity, and Secular Ethics in partnership with UNESCO's Mahatma Gandhi Institute. The training was launched on September 21st on United Nations International Day of Peace and the 75th anniversary of the UN. Join the movement, become a change leader, and with compassion, we can make the world a more peaceful place.
okay, and then one last share. And I'm back, and this is my final slide. For people who would like to contact me, they can simply email this address, and I'll be glad to answer them. So just in summary, dear colleagues from Panjab University, UNESCO, Mahatma Gandhi Institute of Education for Peace and Sustainable Development is conducting a Kindness Matters global campaign. It's made up of those three parts. We are collecting stories of kindness. You can simply enter them on our kindness website. Number two, we organize the annual World Youth Conference on Kindness. This year, of course, just like everything else, it's going to be virtual. And anybody can attend our virtual conference. And then thirdly, in our Kindness Matters campaign, I'm trying very hard to use the declaration that will be issued by the youth at that conference to create a new United Nations International Day of Kindness. That's the Kindness Matters campaign. The second part of my message is the Compassionate Integrity Training Program, an online course, self-directed, in English only for the time being. I hope to get a lot of money from Mr. Ambani or somebody who has too much money to make multiple languages of this course. And for now, it's fully and freely available to all 18,000 students of Panjab University if they want to enroll. Thank you very much again, Professor Deepti, Shruti, and Sandeep. I look forward to taking questions in the Q&A session.
Thank you so much, Mr. Kane. And it's become clear. I'm sure students have picked up on your tips, are going to join the program on CIT as well as the conference, and they will be sharing a lot of stories. So you'll hear from us sooner than you probably expect. Thank you so much, sir. And you've reached out to the youth in a way because I think you began with your children, and that really brings that connection to the youth, that you are also a person who realizes and understands what the youth is going through at this point of time. Thank you so much. Well, moving on, we now have Mr. Vivek Atre, who's joined us. Mr. Vivek Atre is, as said previously, a retired IAS officer. He is a very well-known motivational speaker, he's a columnist and an author. And he knows how to get the young to move and to share their stories. So we've got the person who will motivate you even more. Mr. Vivek Atre, over to you.
Thank you, Shruti. Are you able to hear me?
Absolutely. Please go ahead, sir.
Okay. Thank you very much, first of all, to Professor Deepti Gupta and Professor Shruti Bedi for inviting me. And second of all, to Deepak Dwivedi ji and Sandeep Saxena, old friends, and who have been doing wonderful work throughout the country, to SDGchoupal, and I know Sandeep from various other initiatives also. Wonderful to hear Mr. Abel Kane, because he very eloquently and with a very refined sensibility, he was able to reach across to all of us. And I heard the fact that he's talking about kindness, empathy, compassion, emotional intelligence, socio-emotional learning. These are terms which are very familiar to some of us who are into motivational speaking and speaking about the finer points of life today. I reach across to a lot of youth nowadays, and I must share with Mr. Kane that I have about 3 million youth who have seen my YouTube videos, and I will be very happy to spread this message across to them in future as well. My point to you all is that, thank you. So my point to you all is that this is a day when we can renew our efforts towards energizing ourselves towards the future of the world. There are so many landmarks which are awaited. If the Kindness Day is added to the UN list of days, it will be a landmark in itself. I know for a fact that these days are basically, they should go on the whole year, and kindness is something which should be universal and 24/7, but they give us that occasion to renew our pledge, our energy, our enthusiasm, and our thoughts towards a particular topic and subject. I want to talk about the youth in terms of 3 points, which I have been talking about earlier as well, but this is a befitting occasion. I think there are 3 I's which the youth need to add to their repertoire and increase in terms of intensity and in terms of their involvement with these 3 I's. And I want them to reduce 1 I, which I will also talk about. So my formula to the youth, and they love formulas, is 3I minus I. 3I minus I is the formula. I know it's 2I if you add the maths, but I'm not going to say 2I. The first I talk about is inspiration. Inspiration is something which comes from within. It also comes from a determined enthusiasm to achieve something. You cannot get up in the morning listless and dull and say that, okay, no, today is just going to be a boring, dull day. I'll be on the social media most of the day. I live in a village called Instagram, and I'm going to spend my entire life, almost entire life there. You cannot be like that. You have to spend some time at Instagram, even I do. And we have to balance our lives by doing something inspiring each day. You know what, I was in school and I was fortunate to have studied in Delhi, in London, in Chandigarh, in various other places in my school days. There was a teacher who told us, do one good deed for the day. Could be helping someone cross the road, could be picking up a piece of paper, putting it in the waste paper basket. It could be teaching someone a new word. It could be just being kind to someone elderly and listening to them for 5 minutes. They don't have anyone to talk to. So anything that we do which inspires others and inspires us, it adds value to the world as a whole. Yesterday, I was speaking at a conference where I was saying that each person who adopts inner peace is contributing to world peace. Inner peace means that I'm less restless, less agitated, less aggressive, less destructive, and less negative. If I'm not trolling others, I'm doing a service to mankind in a way these days. I am adding to the positivity of the world by not partaking of all kinds of negativity which is already in the air. So inspiration means that I inspire myself and I inspire others around me to adopt a constructive, compassionate attitude towards the rest of the world. If I am in a society where I can do little bits of things, one of my daughters, I think most of the speakers have been talking about their own lives, so I must talk about my two daughters. One of them is into something called arts-based therapy. And arts-based therapy is something which enables the youth to get out of their depression or their feelings of low feelings by using fine art, even by using music, by using poetry or writing therapy, or by just talking to each other. So she's conducting these online classes in arts-based therapy. The other one is actually doing some research in people who are underprivileged in the rural sectors, in India, health workers, their workload. She's worked for a few UN agencies and NGOs as well. She's currently doing a lot of research in that area. So the point being that any young person who makes it a point to think of others, to be inspired for others, is doing a yeoman service to mankind. And each one of us, even if you're doing a job for a corporate like Pepsi, or Mr. Kane mentioned Mr. Ambani, so let's say Jio and Facebook and whatever their new alliance is, you're working for a corporate, you can still spend 1 hour per day or 2 hours on a Sunday doing something for humanity, planting trees, teaching people, cleaning up your surroundings, helping the elderly, making people's lives a little more comfortable. The second I want to talk about is innovation. Innovation comes from creative thinking. Creative thinking is not encouraged enough in our education system. Luckily, Panjab universities got very high rankings this time. I'm very happy about that. But otherwise, the education system, everybody knows, is not tailored in India towards creative thinking. We have to encourage the youth to think out of the box, to think creatively, and to come up with answers which are not stereotypes, which are not run of the mill. They need to think, what can I do differently today? And they also need to be all-rounders in that sense. If you are a chartered accountant who's wedded to numbers and number crunching and the computer, if you think you can play the guitar in the evening for 1 hour, or you can sing songs to somebody who's lonely, you are adding color and value to your life, which is beyond all the numbers that you're living for. So it is important to innovate in your work as well as in your life. It is important to make lives easier by your excellence in your work, that you manage to make something more efficient than it was. You know, one of the things the Americans do is to systematize things pretty well. There is a form that you have to fill up for a department. It will tell you, this form will take you about 10 minutes to fill up. If I am sitting and filling up a form for the Consumer Affairs Department of Panjab, Chandigarh, Haryana, or Himachal, let me not criticize one state, I'm probably going to take 2 hours to fill up that form. And it doesn't tell me how many hours I'm going to take, because I just don't know what to do with it. If I can make that form more efficient, that process more transparent, my website more speaking, I can make people aware and alert as to what they're getting into. These are just little innovations. In governance, in academia, in institutions, in NGOs, there are ways to make things better, and more efficient. Innovation also means that the youth get together and maybe 5 people, 6 people, they form little groups, self-help groups, study groups, teaching groups, plantation groups, and then they are working with an umbrella organization under maybe a UN body or with SDG goals, and they are working towards the betterment of the world, but in their little ways, so innovating in their little ways. And India's jugards are the most innovative ways to subsist and survive and flourish. There are no dearth of innovative people in India today. The third I is integrity. Integrity is still the most important value that human beings can have, that the youth can have. If you have integrity, you will be true to your cause, true to yourself. If you can stand before the mirror and really recount your faults, that I have these faults, I want to get over them. That means you are honest with yourself. Character is what you do when nobody's watching. So if you have integrity, you will be true to yourself that I'm human, I make mistakes, but I will improve. I will get better. I will try and spread the good word. I'll try and spread values. I want to talk about parents for a minute in this. Parents who tell their children, when the children have become 18 years old, please don't cross the red light. Now you're getting a driving license. And they've been crossing the red light all their lives when nobody's watching. These parents are not going to get very far with their kids. They need to live that example, be that example. That honesty and that integrity which comes from within is what is going to count compared to what you say. Do this, do that is not going to work. They're going to watch you and they're going to watch parents very carefully and learn from them. Integrity is something which is as true in 2020 as it was in 1920 or 1820. The truth doesn't change. Facts change, technologies change, mores and ways of doing things change. But the truth doesn't change. People with integrity, enthusiasm, inspiration, innovation ability are going to lead the change of this world. And because there's not too much time for a full-fledged lecture today, I'm also going to talk about the minus I. The minus I is the ego. Ego is a sense of I-ness. I know ego is spelled E-G-O, not I-G-O. But ego is I am this, I am that, self-centered, egocentric. That means I'm not compassionate towards my fellow beings. I am only looking at my money, my property, my fame, my power, my whatever. I am not sharing, I'm not caring, I'm not giving. Need work on myself. And all religions in the world, all spiritual paths in the world will tell human beings, you have to conquer yourself. You have to conquer your own limitations and inhibitions. I often quote Edmund Hillary, and Edmund Hillary didn't conquer Mount Everest, he said. He said, I conquered myself. I conquered my fears. I conquered my negativities. If we can conquer our own negativities, how much more we can do for the world? Just by changing yourself. Paramahansa Yogananda, the author of the autobiography of a yogi, he said, change yourself and you will change many. We keep trying to change others. When we are in a relationship with somebody, we're complaining about the other person changing, the need to change that other person. But if we change ourselves a little bit, ourselves, the ripple effect, the impact that will have is much greater and better on that relationship. If we talk at the macro level, the SDGs, there's not for me to get into the details, but the point is that we have goals which are carefully laid out. The youth, each person needs to cling on to one or two of those goals as their own passionate goals for life. I am going to make a mark in this particular field. I am going to make some impact in this particular field in my life. You can be all-rounders, but you can focus on one or two of them and try and do your best there. Also, I think great to have the academia and the UN, UNESCO, and SDGchoupal and other sections of society getting together for a cause. I always say that the minutes of the meeting are more important than the meeting. And the action taken on the minutes is more important than the minutes. So when we talk and talk, that talk dissipates into the thin air. But what stays with us is the action taken after that. So let's take some action. Let's get back some time and discuss what happened after this session. And over to you with all kinds of enthusiasm and energy. Whatever I can do, I'm available for a larger cause at all times. Thank you very much for inviting me. Over to you, Shruti.
Thank you so much, Mr. Vivek Atre. That was indeed you motivate every. It is how you put it across so simply that it becomes something that we can all go ahead with. And talking about the youth, we have a lot of students here with us, and I'm sure we have Mr. Abel has two teenagers at home. I have a couple of teenagers at home as well. Mr. Vivek Atre has already spoken about his two daughters. Okay, more than teenagers now. So kindness begins at home. So all of us need to take that forward. And we have a lot of students here with us. I'm sure they have a few questions which they want to share. And I would request Mr. Sandeep Saxena, who was the person who I spoke to after speaking with Shwetanshu and who told me about this initiative, and Mr. Abel Kane, of course, who will be taking these questions from the audience. So any person who has any question can unmute yourself and go ahead and ask the question to Mr. Saxena and to Mr. Kane, or to any one of us. Any question?
Ma'am, may I? Unmute, they can type the question also. Ma'am, you can read from there if they type it.
If there's somebody asking a question, please go ahead.
First of all, good evening to all the present here and all the senior guides and teachers. Thank you so much for organizing this session for us. And I'm looking forward to take part in this. I would like to ask Kane sir that if we want to join MGIEP, except this, like we'll be taking part in this, but then also except this also we want to be a part of MGIEP. So what can we do as students, as university students, what can be done by us?
Right, that's a very good.
She is a second year student of law.
Good. Firstly, please actively take part in the kindness campaign so that we notice you. Number two, if you are in your master's degree or you have finished your master's degree, you can always apply to become an intern at UNESCO, but don't limit yourself to UNESCO in India. You can apply to be an intern at UNESCO worldwide, wherever your skills are needed. Thirdly, vacancies at UNESCO are always posted on the UNESCO website. Once you have your minimum qualifications, which is almost always a master's for young students and PhD for middle level professionals, you can always apply to join UNESCO. And again, don't limit yourself to just either the Mahatma Gandhi Institute. We're tiny. We're a tiny institute of a big UNESCO. And remember, UNESCO is tiny. UNESCO is a tiny organization in the big United Nations system. So have big dreams and apply for any of the available open positions. In fact, if you visit the UNESCO MGIP website right now, I have 2 vacancies published on the UNESCO website. I'm looking for a digital instructional designer to help me improve that compassionate integrity training course that I was talking about. And I'm also looking for a specialist in the prevention of violent extremism. This is a huge problem across the world. And we're looking for that. And then later on, I'll be advertising a 3rd position, but that's for an international staff. So I hope I like to give short answers, Tamana. Internships, There are always vacancies. I have 2 vacancies at MGIEP right now. The applications will close at the end of next week. And you should always apply to UNESCO headquarters, which publishes all the jobs across UNESCO worldwide. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Right.
Anyone else who would like to ask a question? The students of law, they get it once and for all.
Yeah. Maybe. Wow. No questions. I was wondering why the chat was fairly quiet. Oh.
Okay.
I think people
Think
want
about the conference which is coming up or in October. That, please go ahead. Although Mr. Kane has explained the a sort of a brief schedule for the conference, but and you have options of sharing your stories on kindness. From what Mr. Dwivedi, Mr. Kane, and Mr. Atre have already shared with you. But
I just
well,
want to, Shruti, if there's no questions, while we wait for a question,
right.
I want to highlight.
People, I just had a confirmation. Can I speak?
Please, please.
The course that we are talking about, I put it up here, compassionate integrity training. It has an age limit. I feel is not fair.
The course is made for people who are youthful at heart.
It should not have an age limit.
It originally as a course for youth, and so we tried to make it very hip, very radical, very colorful, very non-traditional course. But we have no restrictions whatsoever on the age of the person who wishes to take the course. When you sign up, I think somewhere in the application form you have to put your age, but it's not going to prevent you from taking the course. So in effect, it's open to all.
I had circulated the link. So a couple of members have written to me saying that there is an age limit, it's not fair. So please put our thoughts across.
No. Please tell everybody this course is open.
I'll just bring in Sonia because she's been filtering the replies. Sonia, please come in and confirm about the age limit.
Yeah, I'm also concerned actually about the age limit. Is it from 15 to 35 for the course also, or is it only for the videos that we have to say?
No, let me clarify. The course was originally developed for youth. The look and feel of the course is going to be quite youthful, but it doesn't matter what age you are, except if you're a bit too young. This course is a serious course. It's a university level course. It's taught in a Bachelor's of Psychology program in the US. So there's 2 things why young people won't find this course appropriate. The language is tough. And secondly, you need a certain level of maturity to undertake this course. In reverse, we have no upper age limit. The oldest person enrolled in this course is 94 years old. He's actually a friend of mine from the US. He's liking it. He's going through it. He goes, hey, this is not bad. It's teaching him something.
That's
So,
very good. And sir, what about internships? Somebody has just asked me that for internships, what is the criteria? You told us, but they want to repeat it.
all right. So the minimum criteria is that you should be either in a master's program or have completed a master's. Now, what that means in real life is that you are competing with everybody in the world who has a master's degree or a PhD degree and would still like to intern with MGIEP. So, or with UNESCO. So the higher the degree you have, the more likely it is you will be selected for an internship program. Think of it in reverse. From UNESCO's point of view, we would obviously love someone who has a master's or a PhD and 2 to 3 years of maybe some limited work experience, and they're willing to intern for us exclusively, 100%, for a minimum of 3 to 6 months. So it's not easy to get in. It's highly competitive, and it's based on need. Right now, I would take anybody who is an intern. For my conference next week, I would love anybody to say, can I intern for you, Abel? And I would look at them and say, okay, do you fulfill the minimum UNESCO requirements? The minimum UNESCO requirements must be in a master's program. Now, what do I need an intern for? I need an intern to help me to organize next month's conference. Now, it's a virtual conference. I need someone who has got substantial experience in organizing virtual conferences. Or even if you don't have virtual conference experience, because this is relatively new, only 6 months COVID's been smashing us, someone who's got a lot of physical conference experience and knows how to translate all of that for a virtual environment. I would take this on. Then they have to go and fill out, and we are the UN, famous for inventing bureaucracy when it's not really necessary. We have a dozen forms that you have to fill out. You have to go and get your medical insurance. There's all of these bureaucratic requirements. It's all on the UNESCO internship webpage. If any of the students are listening to us now, just Google UNESCO internship and all of the requirements are there. You fill out a form. You have to satisfy that you have health insurance in case something happens to you while you're working with us. You have to be insured. And then once you have a UNESCO internship profile, you simply write to me. I check out your CV. I like you. I phone you up. I like you even more. You're in.
Thank you for answering that question. Thank you.
All right. We have maybe a little bit of time, so I'm just posting a link in the chat window. You'll recall I was talking about the declaration that we want to be issued at the conference. The draft declaration is available on this Google form, and we are trying to invite lakhs and crores of people from all over the world, any age, preferably youth, but we don't mind what age you are, to go to this Google form, read the draft. The draft is like 6 bullet points, okay? Very quick and easy to read, and put your comments. Put your comments to say something like, I think the draft should have 1 more bullet point on this issue, on this aspect. That's the website for the declaration. The more comments that we collect from all over the world, the stronger my message is to the governments to say 6,000 students, 16,000 youth from all over the world, some X number of youth said that this is what is the most important thing to them about how to achieve the SDGs through kindness. That's the link there. Okay. Still no more questions.
Okay, I think thank you, Kane, for sharing all this information with us, especially the youth, because they are the generation who will leave this story behind. And it's very important for them to imbibe this and change the way we look at the world today. Whether it's a pandemic or a normal situation, it doesn't matter, as Mr. Kane said. So I think with this, it's time to wind up. I would just briefly like to convey my expression of gratitude to all the honorable speakers today, Mr. Deepak Dwivedi, Mr. Abel Kane, Mr. Vivek Atre, for sharing their expertise and their thoughts on this issue and initiative, which I'm sure will be taken forward by all of the audience present here who will share it further with their friends and family. Professor Deepti Gupta for allowing us to host, for hosting this initiative and for providing a platform to all of this kindness initiative. For bringing diversity. Shwetanshu, my old student who spoke about it at the first instance, and this team of students who've been working on it, Bhavi Kapoor, who is not here, Arpit Malhotra, Aditi Siddhar, Abhishek Bindal, and Rahul Sangwan, and many more others who, who are attending this webinar today. Of course, not to forget Sonia Chandel, who has provided the technical support, and the supporting staff of the Panjab University Alumni Association. So thank you, everyone. And without the audience, this would not have been possible. So thank you for being here and for taking it forward. Pleasure to have heard all of you. And it's time to wind up. Anybody else has something to say? Please go ahead.
I would like just to thank Deepti Madam for this opportunity. I'm so happy to be associated after 1993 with the university back home. And Abel, can I request you to play the anthem at the closing?
Are you seeing Google?
That's the declaration.
Shine your light.
Somewhere along our journey of being humans, we have forgotten that we are not the only species on this planet. We are just one among millions and billions of species on this planet.
We are all in this together. We are all in this together. And nothing can remind us like a simple act of kindness. Hey! And in the blackest of night, hey! Just one flash of light, hey! Shows we're not alone. No, not today. It is time. Let's do this. It's our time. Let's do this. It is time to shine a light. Let's do this. It is time to shine your light.
We only protect things that we love. So we should all make it our mission to make everyone fall in love with the natural world. And hopefully through that love, we will clean, protect, and conserve.
It is time to shine your light. मैं जो साथ निभाऊं, तू जो साथ निभाए, तो बात बन जाए, तो ये रात ढल जाए. चलो हाथ बढ़ाए, चलो सबको दिखाए, कोई भी यहाँ अकेला ना है. It is time, let's do this, it's our time. Let's do this, it is time to shine.
environment and nature is pain and suffering that will eventually be inflicted on us as a species, and we need to start thinking as a species. We do not inherit this world from our ancestors, but we borrow it from our children. Thank you and good night.
Thank you, Abel.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing the kindness anthem. I think it just sets the right tone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, ma'am. Can I end the meeting now, Deepti ma'am?
Yes, please, Sonia, we can. And we must thank these wonderful gentlemen. Sandeep, now you are back to Panjab University. We won't let you go.
Thank you, everyone, for attending.